St. Kansas.
I was going to start by just thanking you for making the time to chat with us and to take time from your world travels and your product launches and your speeches and your workshops. And then, of course, then there is sending out daily messages to a current following of over 700,000 plus Tutters.
Woohoo!
Yeah, let's go Tutters. So while you are a New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and entrepreneur, I believe that your official title now is Life Adventurer, which I think is a pretty cool title to have. But I feel what's most interesting to talk about, and I'd love to dive in with you today, is the story behind the Life Adventurer. I want to talk about a little bit about the man behind the messages. And when I talk about the messages, I'm talking about the notes from the universe, which you have remarkably been putting out for 15 years. Yeah. And I think that is in itself a story. So before we get into all of this manifesting and talk about the universe and the Matrix and this debut role you had in this little movie called The Secret, just to start, I thought it would be really great to go back to your childhood, because you said that you were raised in a relatively traditional way. But at 13 and 14 years old, you were asking big questions.
I've always kind of been drawn to the fringe, and I've always kind of wanted answers. Although at 13 and 14, I wasn't really trying to figure out the nature of reality, but I was thinking about stuff like, time and infinity and space and
that's big thinking for a 13-year-old, don't you think?
It wasn't really so bold. I mean, in addition, I was thinking about and trying to find out about Bigfoots and UFOs, and that all is the fringe, which to me has always hinted to there's a lot more going on than we really have the pulse of. And I wanted to know that stuff. So as much as I've never liked reading, I would get little books on hypnosis and hypnotize the neighborhood kids. And so I was just kind of dabbling with the fringe stuff, and I do remember some fleeting conversations with my mother. The big question was, God, and hell. How could there be a place for such in this amazing world? And how could God not be able to see beyond the fact that virtually any and all sins are born of confusion, or mass confusion? And not be big enough to be like, look, this kid came from, not me, but this kid, hypothetically, who just robbed the bank, came from a brutally hard childhood without guidance, without the kind of love that I was surrounded by, and fended for himself and didn't know any better, and kind of drew the bogus conclusion that what you can get away with, you get away with. And so they got away with as much as they could because it was almost survival. And God could see that, and so there couldn't be any such thing as hell, and actually there couldn't be anything that's not God, which was just through kind of deductive reasoning of my own at the time, led me to kind of feel that God is this table, it's that rock, it's the plant, it's the sky. It's like, how could anything not be of God, by God, pure God? And that's what I teach to this day.
I was raised in a traditional Catholic upbringing, so there was a lot of that dogma that we had to unpack, right? But that's big thinking for 13 years old. Again, I'm just going back to that. When was it starting to connect for you?
I don't know why I would always be so curious about those things, but I don't think it's that unique really. I think in a way the dogma was almost a gift, because for any kid who's thinking a little bit, there are such glaring contradictions. I was also raised a Catholic. I joke that I escaped. I am not a Catholic today, or of any religion. But the dogma was so ridiculous, so insane, that there'd be a devil and hell, and that God wasn't able to rehabilitate people, and that
you were condemned to a fate. In
and that he would
right?
be tested, judged, and sentenced by a sadist. I didn't have that vocabulary then, but it just
so it just never made sense to you.
No, and that's bothersome. That's like stupid, and that's like, don't tell me that. And then on my own, just wondering, like, time can't be real. It can't be what we think it is. Because it would mean, if it was real, if it was absolute, that our lives, even if we lived 1,000 years, would be invisibly immaterial, irrelevant on a timeline stretching into infinity. So either that's the case, or time isn't what we think it is. And so it was time, it was space, it was God. That's kind of where my mind went. And had a mom that was amazing, because she was a big reader and kind of a best friend kind of mom. Just we totally,
it's great you were having
the
these
vibe.
Conversations at that young an age.
Yeah, well, even then she was kind of at a loss for furthering the conversation, but she agreed, and then still on Sunday made me go to church.
Right. Well, but at least there was a space created for you to have those conversations, which is more than you can say for a lot of people.
Totally.
But you then did continue on a certain traditional trajectory, because you went on to college, and then you went on to become, you had a corporate job, and you became an international tax specialist, where you started to travel the world. And I was then thinking, like, someone that's having these kinds of conversations, and they're in college on campus at the University of Florida, and I'm thinking of the juxtaposition of, like, frat parties, keg parties, spiritual jargon, big talk, so how did that all work out for you in college?
Yeah, for me, it was always about the practical. I never was pursuing spirituality for spirituality's sake, and I had no interest in doing anything of service. To me, I really had a bad vibe from service, coming from the church, which said, put the needs of others before your own, which even then to me was counter-life, counterproductive. We didn't come here to live for other people, and I hold to that to this day. I've warmed up to service, but I call it selfish service. I do it when I want, because I want, because it's exciting. The idea of planting an idea like a seed in someone's soul or their heart that will one day eventually give them new thoughts, a new life that will bear fruit, that will ripple out into improving other people's lives. Nothing more intoxicating than being of service in that light when you're ready, when you've taken care of things at home. And for me, I would query these things on the fringe, looking for some traction. Like, how can I get it on? How can I have the most rocking life? I want to be rich. That was my perspective then.
And I want to have fun.
And there's nothing wrong with rich, and certainly nothing wrong with fun. Yeah, I wanted to have fun.
Did you have fun in college?
I wanted the girls to like me. I was an accounting major, and it was so not natural for me. It was like torture, but I did have fun, and I was in a fraternity, and I did party, and it was a lot of fun. It was all the conventional things that one would hope for. And in college, the pitch in my yearning for answers, it was my freshman year. It was like screaming at me. It was like an alarm in my head. Just thinking, like, wait a minute. Everybody dies. No matter how good or bad they are, everybody dies. I mean, Shakespeare, gone. Presidents,
gone.
Kings, prime ministers, queens.
Right.
Everybody dies, and they're gone forever. And we have no idea where they went. And we have no idea why we're here for such a fleetingly brief, seemingly inconsequential time. It's like, what gives? Because this is like, why isn't everybody talking about this? Why isn't everybody, wondering the same thing as me? But instead, everybody's on the treadmill.
Right.
Got class to go to, mouths to feed. It's like, so I would go to prayer groups, even though I wasn't inclined that way. I would go to the New Age bookstore. I would go anywhere looking for answers, and that's when Mom sent me a book. It was the Seth material dictated by Jane Roberts that was just like, and by then I had started drawing even more conclusions about reality. We're all God.
So I just want to ask you, was your mom sort of on that same path? Were you sort of aligned on that path together?
She was not at all, except that she thought probably the church was extremely hypocritical, and she had some issues with it. As far as birth control, the Catholic Church says no, you can't go to communion if you're on birth. It's like all the impossible things they wanted you to do, but yet we still went. Right. But she didn't wonder as I wondered, and she tried to help me with my questions to some degree. But because she was a huge, voracious reader, and I hated reading, still do, for the most part, she was open to being a receiver of new ideas. And I got this book in the mail, that had a Post-it note stapled to the cover. You must read this. This is before the internet. This was like, okay, I call home once a week on a landline, And so stuff was sent by postal service, physical books, and a few other books too, Louise Hay, what were the other ones? Richard Bach's Jonathan Livingston Seagull and The Illusions. And these books, especially the Seth material, confirmed my own inner suspicions, conclusions that I had drawn that time is a totally bogus illusionary construct, making possible the stage of our lives, that God is in all of us, that everyone's doing their best, that we are all of goodwill, man, woman, and child. Although, we get off track and people do some hideous things, but everyone is doing their best, however poor we can judge that to be, in these hallowed jungles of time and space that I call them now. And so I thought Mom had lost it. I didn't read the book. I talked to her on the weekend because I could see this strange lady in a trance on the cover. I was like, this is wrong. And she said, this lady goes into trance and her husband takes longhand dictation and it doesn't even need editing, and bam, book after book after book, and you should hear what Seth has to say. I was like, stop everything. This is not right, Mom. This is just kookiest thing I ever heard in my life. And she said, forget the source. Read what Seth has to say about reality, about consciousness, about the power of our thoughts, about the before life realms and afterlife realms, and why we chose to be here. And it was like, but
okay, Mom.
Yeah, and so I did.
Right.
And it just blew my mind, confirmed these ideas, and then created dots I never could have formulated on my own, went where I never could have gone at that stage on my own. And it was like the answer to all of my pining and literally pain at the time of like, what
Were you?
gives?
Did you feel isolated? Did you have other people that you could speak to?
No, nobody I could.
So there was a little bit.
I felt always, and I think this is not unique, but kind of like I'm on the outside looking in. Everybody knows what's going on. I didn't get the instruction book. I didn't get the debrief. Everybody at college seemed to be so cool, so hip. Oh, they had all friends everywhere, and I'm just like faking it, like. Yeah, that's cool, right, let's go there. Yeah, I'll join a fraternity. And, I made the best of it. It was awesome.
So you did kind of walk between the two worlds in a way.
Totally walk between the two worlds. Right. And then it was all about, okay, so our thoughts become things. It's in an illusionary world that we get what we think about. Our words give us wings kind of thing. And so it's like, okay, this is how I'm going to live a rocking life. It was never about,
Did that all come together then, though? Or was the thoughts become things? Because I always say you're famous for 3 words. Thoughts become things.
Well, thank you, and I'd like to think that's true. I'm sure I'm not the first person that said thoughts become things, but I'm the first person I knew of, and I never heard it from anywhere else. But that didn't come out until much later, when I had a T-shirt business with my brother and mother, and we dabbled.
Okay, so wait, back up. So college.
So in college,
you got this
I got the truth. And I didn't learn everything. I still say in my books now, I know very, very little about very, very little. But I know enough to know that I am the eyes and the ears of God, as we all are, that my thoughts become things, that I'm here by choice, and that I can live deliberately and create consciously for the rest of my life. And I've been working at that, mastering that, from that time, 18, 19-year-old freshman at the University of Florida. So first it was like get out of school and get past these bloody accounting exams.
But why go through the accounting exams? Why become a tax specialist?
Well, I think there was enough sense in me to not think that, okay, the universe is going to live my life for me. Seth didn't talk about the universe in those terms. It was more of all that is.
See, this I think is this is an important point, because this is where I think people get caught up sometimes, because the universe is going to take care of me, and I'm going to be rich, and I'm just going to sit back and wait for pennies from heaven. So let's talk about that. How do we pair the magical thinking and the action steps?
Yeah.
And how do we align the dots? And so that's why this journey is really important for you to share.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing people miss, who are big fans of The Secret, etc. And they're like, when is it going to work? When am I going to win the lottery? It's like,
I'm sitting here on the sofa waiting.
Yeah, there's a lot of old school wisdom about taking action and being out there and the early bird. Although it goes too far. There's enough worms for all the birds, and opportunity never stops knocking, contrary to that painful notion that it only knocks once. Right. What if you missed it? What if you slept in? What if you were hungover? your life could be curtains because of that mistakes. And the reality is so much more lenient and loving and embracing. But it's a reality we have to stoke, we have to program, and we have to make it happen. There's the old school phrase, something to the effect of pray and move your feet.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing, because
Exactly.
too many people might think, well, I'll let God do it. It's like, hey, God put you here to do it.
Right.
We are God here
Right.
to see what will happen, and it's up to us to engage the magic. And yes, our thoughts do become things, but the best analogy I've come up with so far to share the importance of how it works and our role in working it is digital GPS navigation. Step one, have an end result. And in that instant, the system knows how. And in the instant, you know what you really want, and you've defined it wisely, as I spent my career teaching now. Define wisely the end result, not the how do I get there.
Right.
Don't encumber yourself with demanding that specific people behave in specific ways. Don't insist on the cursed hows, how your dream will come true. Let divine intelligence figure that out.
Give us a specific example, just, like how someone would, they have a dream or a passion or a pursuit. Just give us like a specific example of I want to publish a book.
Okay, so define your dreams in terms of the end result. So you want to get very, very clear. And I've got to say that there's things that I teach on the way to deciding that that's your dream. First of all, you got to have something to say, or you're a storyteller. I don't know of any other reason why anybody should write a book. It should not be for the money.
Right.
And that you want it to be a bestseller, I would caution that now you're hinging your happiness and your definition of success as to whether or not Oprah and 5 million people buy it, and that's not really fair to you. You got something to say or a story to tell. Get into the saying and the storytelling because it excites you, because it's passionate, because you like the angle you have on it. You love the creative process, not that it can't drive you to screaming fits at times. That's what writing will do. But overall, you're in alignment with it. And so once we found an end result that you're in alignment with, then get really clear on what it's like on the other side of the fence, having already written something that thrills you, which ought to be how you do it, not that thrills the world. And you can want to thrill the world. I think that's normal and natural, part of our ego, and I'm not against or up to fighting my ego. It's like, let's work with this, okay? This is a cool component, like my left arm and my right arm. I've got an ego that helps me contextualize and understand and give meaning and value to that, to my preferences, which is why I'm me. So create that picture in your mind then of the finished product, the end result. That book is in your hand. You can feel the weight of the 200 or 100 or 300 pages. You're thumbing through it. You remember the discussions with the editor about this passage, that passage. Maybe you self-published it and you decided on the very font that would be used and the stylization of the title or the chapter number.
And you've been through this 14 times now, so.
Yeah. And so you get the whole thing in you. And then you imagine things like hearing congratulations or receiving a surprise email from somebody who was affected by your work. You imagine seeing your book at Amazon.com. And this is before you even put pen to paper
Right.
or power up your
Or a book,
laptop.
you see yourself at a book reading.
A book reading, a book signing,
Right.
speaking from the platform, taking it even further. That's a great example of going beyond the dream. Because the only way the dream of writing a book and having it published can come to pass, the only way that you can be in a world beyond the dream is if the dream came true. So define the dream in terms of the end result, and then define your life afterwards, which implies that the dream came to pass. Super powerful exercise. So you can do this in words, you can do this in painting if you're artistically inclined. Step one is get really clear on the finished result, the end result. Step two, like GPS navigation. If your car's in park, the system is designed and wired by geniuses not to help you, because you're stating that you're not ready. You're not ready. So you can't have a dream, champagne and caviar, best-selling book, and then be doing nothing about it.
Right.
You have to do something about it. The instant you put your car in gear, the whole system flies into being, into action, and you are guided, you could say by the universe lovingly, to the right path. Most people don't put their car in gear because they don't know how their dream will come true. Well, it's like, well, you're not supposed to know how. That's too much for the human mind. Your mind is meant to assess what you like or don't like in your life. Go ahead and pass judgment on it, and that which is poking you or causing discomfort, or that which excites you and thrills you, create pictures around it so that you're past the lions and tigers and bears, or that you're living in a realm, in a life, in circumstances where the dream has already come true or has just come true. Then the system knows exactly how to get you there. It's already considered every road, detour, alley, speed limit, delay, detour, traffic congestion. It knows, but it won't speak to you until your car's in drive, and then there's no wrong way. You can go the opposite theoretical way, and you will hear, make a legal U-turn until you get on path, and the universe does this for you.
Why are we getting so tripped up?
Oh, there's 1,000,001 great understandable reasons. So we need to have a lot of compassion with ourselves and a lot of patience with ourselves. Not always the easiest thing to do, but we chose to be born into very primitive times, spiritually speaking. So you and I, for example, were raised in the dogma of Catholicism, that we were born broken, bad sinners, that we need to grovel and seek redemption for the rest of our lives and walk a narrow line that no human being could ever walk. So we're steeped in this by the time we're, a young adult.
Right.
And so that right away is working against us. But I cherry-pick the Bible big time. Anything that gives you comfort, and empowers you, enables you, go for it. And the story of the prodigal child is one of my all-time favorites, because it reveals how on a dime your entire inheritance can be restored. And the story, of course, is the wayward son who says, thanks, Pop, but I don't need all that, cushy good life. I'm going to do it myself, and goes and makes a mess of absolutely everything, but yet has the dignity and the wherewithal to say, hey, Dad, can I come back home? And much to the chagrin of his dutiful brother, who had never wavered or deviated from family life, his father orchestrates this huge party, big celebration instantly for asking in that moment his full inheritance is restored. And the instant we ask the hard questions and clue into the truth, and it doesn't have to be a lot, I know very, very little about very, very little, but I do know that I am divine come alive, divinity come alive. I do know that my thoughts become things. I do know that I'm powerful. I do know that there's no agenda, that tomorrow's a blank slate, that I can write my own ticket. And when somebody gets that, in an instant, they bypass all the dogma. Now, it takes a little practice.
I was going to say, when did you know that?
That's what I came to know in my late teen, early 20 years, still in college. And so for me, it was still like, I'm not going to abandon my degree in accounting. I still intuitively know, I think as we all do, sometimes we kid ourselves, that still ain't nothing going to happen unless I go out there and knock on doors and do something. I wanted to leave college with a degree, and I wanted it to be the accounting degree that I set out for, so that I could ultimately be a wheeling, dealing, freestyle entrepreneur, global domination, baby. And so...
How long were you doing the accounting?
I was with Pricewaterhouse for 6 years before they were
And you were all over the world.
Started out in Tampa, St. Pete office, Saudi Arabia, Cairo, Egypt, New York City, Boston, Massachusetts. Some of those assignments were several months and some were several years. But,
Did it light you up?
The accounting profession... I respected immensely. I have the highest regard, particularly for Pricewaterhouse. I mean, it was almost like military, but in a most wonderful way that enhanced order and productivity. And I'm all about that. I've always been super like, let me at it, let me do it, and if you can show me better ways to streamline. So I learned so much, and it was a great experience. But I never felt like, I really love this profession. But I love the people. There was a lot of brilliant people in the firm. Our clients were brilliant. I got to live and travel all over the world.
There was this whole other side of you.
Yeah, and they made possible that assignment, and then relocating to these big cities and to Boston. But by the 6th year, I was just like, I'm gonna die here.
When did you transition? Like, what was it that, you said you were at this point and you knew, like, okay, enough is enough, and I've got someplace else to go?
Well, the biggest transition was in college, but I was looking for a way out. So I just kind of towed the line, and I wasn't going to wait for Oprah to call. I was going to be out there.
Some rational thinking.
After 6 years with PW and traveling the world and just feeling like, this is so not who I am, I remember thinking, look, no one's coming along and saving me from this ivory tower. I'm going to force the hand of the universe, and I'm just going to quit. I had just been promoted to manager, and they could hardly believe that I turned in my resignation. Rumors were rampant because no one believed that I didn't have a plan.
Right.
I had no idea what I was going to do next. I just figured I'll move back to Florida, where I grew up and where some family was. And there I will be recognized for my awesomeness. And that didn't happen. And so month after month went by. I was sure it was the worst decision of my entire life. And finally, my mother tried and succeeded talking some sense into me. She said, look, your little brother Andy just got out of art school and he's getting royalties from t-shirt companies, and you're the unemployed CPA. Why don't you guys team up and launch your own line of t-shirts, do all the trade show circuit, which was very established then, and you've got your own company. And
so this was Tut.
Tut. And so we launched Tut, and then Mom joined us. I was like, oh God.
Here we go.
And so the three of us launched Tut. She was a big believer the first 2 years, where I was looking for a way out.
Tut stands for totally unique.
In the beginning, it was just the name of our logo guy, and everybody said, what does it stand for? So we said, totally unique t-shirts, and everybody laughed. And it's like, okay, that's it, totally unique t-shirts. And then we evolved into selling all kinds of other souvenir items, so it became totally unique thoughts, because all of our designs had words, poems about life, dreams, and happiness. And then it evolved into today's, not 25 years later, the universe talks, for the notes from the universe.
When did that happen, and how did that happen? At this point, that was, you had
So-
sort of taken over, right?
So the t-shirt business came about kind of against our will, because nothing else showed up, and it was better than doing nothing, and I advocate that to
Was it better than
anybody.
accounting?
At first I wondered, but then it took off, and
Okay.
we had an amazing 10-year run. By the end of the 10 years, the trends were declining. We had bought my mother out. Andy was being a jerk. My brother, just kidding.
Poor Andy.
And no, I was being a jerk for sure. And so we said, let's just liquidate. Our leases are all expiring from our small little chain of stores, and we can do our own thing. And it was like, oh, cool, we can do that. We'll be ahead financially. But once that was done, it took 6 months to wind it down. It was just like, what have I done? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? I was almost 40 years old. I had
Life wasn't
zero.
so magical at that point.
Life was not magical. This was the dark night of my soul.
Right.
It was really bad. No career momentum. Didn't want to go back to corporate. Didn't want to go back to entrepreneurial. Like, what other realms are there? And
But I have to say also, that's one of those critical moments where people make decisions, and the fear could have easily led you back. You could have said like, okay, I tried this thing, it's not
Yeah.
working, and it's back to corporate America. But
Well,
you know.
I have to admit, I did polish off my accountant's resume. I was like totally lost. And sometimes perhaps the universe conspires, because no one
The universe
would
was
give
like,
me,
no, come back.
no one would give me an interview, and the whole process made me nauseous. And I was like, look, this isn't who I am. I do have 2 years through which I can coast based on my little life savings before I really have to be serious and resume making mortgage payments. I won't have savings anymore to draw off of. And so I was like, okay. And at that time, I really wanted some inspiration. So I would put my own Post-it notes or Louise Hay quotes around my house. I remember thinking, I wish I could get an email unexpectedly at different points of the day, perhaps when the walls are closing in, to say, stay the course.
Bingo.
Thoughts become things, dreams come true.
Right.
And I was like, I'll send those out, because we had a small database of people who had signed the guest book in our retail stores. So I had some email addresses, and this was the turn of 1999 into 2000. So email and the internet were a novelty, nothing imaginable compared to. We had dial-up email, dial-up internet connections back
Right.
then with the telephone landline modem. But it was adequate to create a web page that supported what I was doing and send out free emails. That wasn't going to pay any bills. I was terrified. I was literally praying at the side of my bed, Catholic style, every night during this dark
Any
night
style
of my
you knew
soul.
at the time.
Like, please show me the way. I want to be happy again. I had this dream of wealth and abundance, creative, fulfilling work, international travel, and I was going to do what I could with what I had from where I was. And so there was the emails, there was the website, I dabbled with shopping carts and viral marketing. Everything I did failed. But it coalesced into setting me up for a suggestion somebody made that we do a joint venture launching a self-improvement audio program, which was a joke given where my life was at the time. We launched it. I did everything he said. I was selling it to my peeps.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. He couldn't sell it for his life. He bailed, left me with the program on my own before we had even finished the first recording.
So what is that time frame? How long?
That was 1 year of sending out free emails and failing at everything I did, from peddling my resume to internet shopping carts of failure.
So you were persistent. You stayed the course.
I was desperate and scared for my life.
Right.
No kidding. I was like, how did this happen? Am I going to lose my home? What if I can't figure this out in time? So just the old school of hard knocks, blood, sweat, and tears. I was going to make this work, which at the time, I wondered if I could. There was no if you just stay in there long enough, that you're going to really be happy. There was I just hope I'm not deluding myself. I hope that there is going to be a tunnel show up soon, that I can look for a light down the end of it. I mean, it was bad.
I'm looking.
And so then I joined Toastmasters. Toastmasters led to Rotary Clubs. Rotary Clubs led to Unity Churches, where I would be the guest speaker at all of these. I hated speaking. I was the most terrified speaker alive. But I found I could write a good speech, and it parlayed into this self-improvement audio program, which did take wings. My people bought it from me. The guy bailed, so it was my own product,
right,
which was the biggest blessing in the world. In hindsight, you can look back on the trail you've tread and see that there was just miracle after miracle after miracle. During the trail, you see nothing. It's all bad.
Right.
It's weird. Nothing makes sense. You self-doubt yourself. You worry. But you stay the course, just like GPS navigation. Car's got to be in gear. You don't see your best friend. You might be driving for hours. You don't see the destination. You've got to go on faith. And when you get there, then you realize every left and right-hand turn was spot on, perfect, couldn't have been better. And in life, you don't know that you're on the right path until the dream comes true, which means it could be days, weeks, months before you're on the verge of quitting because you don't see results. But you perhaps have already reached the tipping point, and it was essential that you just keep showing up even when everyone else was quitting, so that the tide can turn and the pendulum can swing, and suddenly you're like, holy crap. It was about the second or third year. And I got to say, if the universe had said, I got your prayers, I see you on your knees, I'm going to send the reinforcements, and it'll be about 2 or 3 years, I would have been like, what?
I know. Yeah.
I can't wait that long. What happened to life?
You can't handle the truth.
It's true.
2 to 3 years, yeah.
But when it came to pass, 2 or 3 years later, and there was always glimmerings of hope after the first 18 months, this audio program might work out. Hey, I can write a good speech. Hey, people are thanking me for what I'm doing. It was about 2 or 3 years when there was a day when I was literally like, oh my God, this is it. I am living, in the beginning, the life of my wildest dreams. I've got an internet company, products are now selling, I'm giving speeches, I'm traveling the world, the database is ballooning. And then I remember thinking, it seemed like yesterday I was bad-mouthing my life and complaining to my mom that I hate speaking and when things going to change. And then it was when somebody was saying that to me about their life that I had this epiphany. It was that sounds so familiar. It's that was me not long ago. When did it change?
Did you start shifting the things you were saying to yourself?
Oh, I was always working on that.
Right.
But I have to confess that I was a worrywart, and I was in fear, and that I would have these ugly fantasies of losing my home.
Okay, so let's stop there for a second, because that, I think, speaks to the collective human experience. And I think that a lot of people that are listening to this can relate to that place. And perhaps they know, this is my passion, this is what I want to pursue, but all that chatter is what's, kind of bogging me down. It's what do you say to that?
The thing that I think served me really well was I did not believe, and I to this day do not teach, that you have to know what your invisible, limiting, self-sabotaging beliefs are. Conversely, if you go on that wild goose chase looking for what is in fact invisible, you will bog down, overwhelm, get a team of people. You'll start making stuff up that wasn't even wrong. Right. You'll say, well, it must be I wasn't worthy. It must be that thing Mom said when I was 7, and when Dad smacked me across the head, and when this or when that. Or people have worse stories than me. I had it good. But you'll find stuff, and you'll be like, of course, no wonder the wheels fell off the car. I was just lucky to get as far ahead as I was, and you'll undermine your progress. You do not have to know how you got where you are. Where you are is never who you are. You're infinitely more. What matters is figure out how life works. And even then I was onto it. I knew that I was a creator. I knew there was no agenda. I knew I wasn't there to be tested, judged, and sentenced. I knew my thoughts become things, and I just need to work those dreams more and do what I can with what I have, show up, go outside of my comfort zone, and nothing was going to stop me except death. And so that's where I was. And in looking back, while certainly there were things wrong with me, certainly I had issues, we all do, they weren't enough, nor were they the cause of the train derailment, the accident of my life. It was the train stopping to change tracks to go further, faster, farther. I worked what I knew about the nature of reality, which a child can know. We are divine creators here to rock and roll our lives. There's enough for everyone. And I just started working that. And then in hindsight, I realized there was no train wreck. Thank God I didn't waste any more time or any time at all looking for what was wrong with me, because I'd still be there looking for the pieces and the parts, and I'd have a team of specialists to help me through my trauma, and I would use my story to talk about and justify why I'm not further ahead. I wasn't going to play that game.
Okay, so now you have come to this remarkable place. And do you have hiccups?
I have challenges. We all have challenges. They are these great, divinely inspired invitations to be even more awesome than you presently are. And when you get that, you can roll with them. I don't have depression. I don't have bad moods that last more than a day and they show up once every 6 months.
Previously?
I never had clinical depression. But, I was bummed out with where my life was.
Right.
And I was angry, and I was very prone to bad moods, and extreme impatience. So, I still have stuff, but it's minuscule. It's just part of the many other wonderful things about me. I've recast my whole past this way. The 2 to 3 years that seemed like eternity for things to take off, even then I was like, wow, I've made it. I'm on my way. That was fast. That was easy. But during that process, getting there, it was brutal and slow and hard and seemingly futile.
So does that feel like a different person?
Oh yeah, now it's the fondest of my memories almost of little Mike in the house,
Mike. Yeah.
Sweating because he wouldn't run the air conditioner because he was afraid he'd burn through his life savings. And I'd be just like, you go, little Mike, you go. You are onto something bigger than you can even imagine right now. And I think fondly of myself sticking to the course when it seemed so pointless. I'm writing emails for free for a year. And then everything I try on the internet fails. And then I start speaking. I can write a good speech, but nobody will hire me. I'm speaking for free now. It's like, am I delusional?
But you weren't parked. That's the most
I wasn't
important thing,
parked,
right?
and that is so key.
We get bombarded with things. My inbox, blows up every morning. I get a lot that comes in, and I unsubscribe to a lot of things. But for 15 years, you have been putting these messages out, and I have to tell you something. They have been coming into my inbox for as long as I can remember, and they are delightful, and that is testament to the car not being parked.
It can always look easier on the other side, and somebody could say, well, it's easy for him. Oh, well, he's got a gift. Oh, well, it's like the notes. I've always tasked myself, even in the beginning, even when I was doing it for free and 36 people were getting them. It was about, Mike, you better write something and it better be good or this is going nowhere. I never thought, well, I'll just dream and I'll write and the universe will connect the dots. The initial notes from the universe emailings would often take me 6 to 8 hours to write a little teeny paragraph.
I just wanted to
and
say
I hated that.
Yeah, but I wanted to say
But then they'd be good and I'd be like, yes!
Well, they're good also because I'm going to go out on a limb and just say that I think that you're still very passionate about it and that you love them.
I do.
Because if you didn't love them, we wouldn't love them.
I think that's so key, and so many people will talk and ask about, what's the marketing behind it, and it's like, look, just be your own best version of awesome, and everything else will fall into place. And to get to your own best version of awesome, mix in a little woo-woo, like I teach, and mix in a little logic,
right,
and a little blood, sweat, and tears, although that's not really the price. But if it'll get you out the door, go to a trade fair, go to a function, go to an I Can Do It conference, go to some websites, do some research, read some books, print some business cards, get out there, and you can't fail.
And it's going to reach a broader demographic.
And I've always been into reinventing. Like, there's always been the notes. That's been the constant. But they're still free. There needs to be another apparatus. So now there's 14 books. Now there's 4 world tours. Now there's DVDs and video courses.
And your training programs.
Training program, certification program. We raise money for charities. I speak in jails. We've raised over $1 million.
Well, that's what I wanted to say also. So you have now dedicated your life. Forget these notes. I'm never going to get to these notes. So you have dedicated your life's work, your body of work, and basically everything that's coming out of Tut is really to share this message and to spread this to other people and to empower other people.
That sounds like work, and I would not frame it that way, but that is exactly the case. I think when we lead through, as I said earlier, selfless service, you're not going to help many people. This is something I'm passionate about. This is something I'm excited about. I still want my life to rock even more laughter, more friends, more service in a selfish way. And that can be measured by how many people I'm reaching and the effect they're telling me that it has on them and my audience sizes and my book sales. Now, we could look at all those numerically and financially, and that has one meaning, but there's also a feedback like, okay, am I getting the message out? Okay, am I resonating with folks? What's working? What could be worked on better? How can I reinvent? How can I be out there more? And to say I've dedicated my life, I like that. It's kind of flattery, but it sounds more noble than what I feel like I'm doing. I want to have fun. I want to make a difference. I want to do it my way. And I'm going to use a little logic and intuition to kind of make these roads blend and dovetail so that I can achieve all of these objectives because it's fun and because it's what I want to do. And the day it's not, I won't want to do it and I won't do it, and I'll find another way to have fun.
How do you feed yourself? How do you feed, what supports you?
I like feeling like I did a good job, and it's not always fun getting to that place, but the different talks I've given, a lot of Hay House presentations, my books, they're hard work preparing for your time on the stage or the printed finished manuscript, but that's kind of still what floats my boat the most, doing good. I don't mean doing good in the world, I mean doing a good job. That's like my next book. Is that the book I wanted to write? Did I live up to my capabilities? Was that the speech I wanted to give? Was I poised enough, paused enough, funny enough? Was that really good? And part of it might be ego gratification, although I don't really so much need it to hear it from other people. I just need to know myself that I really hit that mark. And that is like one of the biggest thrills and experiments and adventures of my life. But as you know, I am a newlywed, 5 years, and it depends when did we get married. We got married in the court, and then years later we had a wedding. So it's always tricky to say when we got married. But, first time marriage, never thought it would happen. A Mexican woman who did not speak English, by the way, when I met her, nor did I speak Spanish. Wow. And now we have a 2.5-year-old. And so that is a huge part of my life.
I wanted to ask you how that has changed your life and changed your business and changed your vision for the future.
I think it hasn't changed my professional ambitions of doing great work and helping connect dots for people. I mean, I'm more sensitive, of course, because I have this daughter that I dote over and blows my mind every second I'm with her. And I'm home way more than I'm away. So even though I travel
this fills
a lot,
you well.
Totally. And I hope I fill her well. Probably she feels my well more than I fill her well. But sure, I think of how fortunate I've been in my life, loving, guiding parents. I think of how fortunate I want to believe she is with loving, guiding parents and a nice home and balanced meals and all kinds of activities. And it makes me think of so many people who never had that. The majority of people in the world don't have what I was blessed to have. And I'm super mindful of that. Like, I want to help. I want to carry the load. I want to that's my training program, reaching those who have not yet been reached. I'm not going to give every child a balanced meal at this stage, but I can help foster the development of programs either through my office or through my certified trainers that will reach children, that will reach inmates, that will reach every walk of life, where the majority of the world don't know these truths that we know, that life is beautiful, that we are powerful, that we're loved and adored and have never been judged. People don't know that. They carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. They feel like bad people. They feel like they're not good enough. They just don't know the truth, that they are the eyes and the ears of God. And so that's my message, and that's the best I can do to help, in my own little way, to make it a better world so that future generations have more truth, more guidance, more possibilities. And that's how my daughter has probably helped me the most.
What is your dream for your daughter and her generation?
Well, a lot of it would be very conventional. I would begin with, I want her to be highly responsible. I would like her to be self-sufficient. I would like her to be happy and joyful more than anything, but I'm really into these pillars of look, it takes a village kind of thinking. We all have to be involved. We have to carry our weight. We can't slough it off to our parents or to the universe or to Tinkerbell. It's look, roll up your sleeves. Let's do this. It's awesome. It's fun to be alive, to get your hands in the dirt. And so I'd want her to have that, a really strong sense of her ability to live the life of her dreams and to make a difference in the process. Because whether or not you're a teacher or an author or a speaker or a facilitator, every single person makes a difference in the world. And they make the greatest difference when they follow their heart and they do their best and they live responsibly. And thereby they enrich the lives of their immediate family, and the ripples go on forever and ever. So I want her to be one of those people that does her best to live a passionate life, no matter what. Of course, every parent says that, no matter what she does.
They don't all say that, so it actually is a really powerful message. I think that's the greatest thing we can empower our children with. I often say to my son, who's 16 years old, it's just pursue what you love. Really.
And until you find it, pursue the least of your sucky options, is what I tell my audiences. Because you cannot sit on the sidelines and wait till your dream job comes to sink your teeth into it. If you don't know where your passion lies, fine. You got an easy, assess your options, choose the least sucky, and go and be your all, and then your passion will appear. So, the other thing that I feel like a yearning to kind of put into the mix of what I'll share with my daughter beyond the convention is, a huge spiritual awareness to everything is God, everything is special, everything is magical, and bring that into work and responsibilities and showing up and knocking on doors.
Well, and don't you think our children remind us of that? When
now they do. I don't want her to forget like we did.
Well, exactly. See, that's the gift. Don't forget. Don't forget what you came in here with. Thank you for sitting down and having this adventure with us today. You're absolutely delightful. You are such a team player, such a great sport, a lot of fun.
Thank you, Kristen. It's been a pleasure, and you're doing awesome work. Keep it up.
Rock on. And don't park the cars.
No parked cars, not around here.